Hello and welcome once again to ITU Telecom World here in Geneva in Switzerland. It's Nigeria Day here at the show today, not Nigeria Day in Nigeria, and to commemorate this I am talking with Mrs. Omobola Johnson, who is the Minister of Communications Technology for Nigeria. Minister, welcome. We've seen over the past 10-15 years or so a boom in ICT around the world. Now things are changing, some economies are in trouble. What do you think are the key issues facing the sector today?
I think there are a number of challenges. I think, first of all, broadband is, as we've been talking about over the last 2 days or so, getting connectivity across countries and also with other across countries and across continents. I think that's one of the major challenges. I think also, we've had a boom in terms of voice, particularly in Africa. Voice telephony has just boomed, and that's really where we've seen the great results of telecoms. But I think the next big challenge for us is data, and how we're going to get that same data boom. And the importance of data is that data now becomes a means by which you can develop. So using that data for financial inclusion, using that data for health, particularly for the rural areas, just connecting the rural areas with the urban areas, closing the digital divide that exists not across continents, but actually within countries. I think those, for me, are the two major challenges that the ICT world is faced with.
What are your expectations when you come to an event like ITU Telecom World? And do you have a key message that you would like to give to the delegates and the visitors here and to the people who will watch this interview?
This is my first telecoms world event, and I'm 3 months into this job, but I think I had a lot of expectations nevertheless. And the biggest expectation that I had was just being able to connect and engage with ministers from all over the world, both developing and developed countries. And really just in terms of learning. We're facing very similar challenges in the different countries, regardless of our level of development. And I'd like to just hear from them how they have dealt with or how they're dealing with these challenges. I'd like to hear from them experiences that they've had, the successes they've had, and why they think those have been successes. And also mistakes they've made and how they got over those mistakes. So for me, it's really a great chance to engage and to just learn. The second thing is just the exhibitions themselves. I mean, they're very, very impressive exhibitions here. Is learning about new technologies and what's available. Coming from a country like Nigeria, where we can leapfrog. We don't have to go through the cycles that other countries went through. We can actually leapfrog into these new technologies. It's really just been able to go to the exhibition stand, see what the new technologies are, see what the new applications are, and beginning to look at how we can then use that in Nigeria. And also just a chance to network. I've met people from Russia, I've met people from Azerbaijan, people that I really wouldn't have met just by being a minister in Nigeria, and that's been very, very exciting.
And the message you'd like to leave for the delegates?
A key message. I think the key message is really around the theme of the conference, which is really about collaboration. And communications allows us to collaborate in more ways than one. And I think for me, it's just, for Nigeria, it's just that how do we collaborate better with other countries to achieve our own objectives? Collaboration in terms of technology transfer, knowledge transfer, and of course funding, which we need quite a lot of it in Nigerian investments.
How do you think that ICT can best help develop not just the economic but the social development of the world in general?
First, I think ICT is really around connectivity, connecting the world. So we talk about globalization, the world is becoming a smaller place, and really that's only possible because of what technology has done, just allowing us to connect with each other. I think from a global point of view, ICT is even more important for developing countries than developed countries. I could be wrong, but that's really what I think. And that's because we have great swaths of rural areas, particularly in the developing countries, that really have been excluded from any development that we've seen in these countries. And ICT is such a critical way in which you can actually begin to bring these rural communities into the rest of the world. So if I use, for instance, I know you said global, but let me just use Nigeria as an example. We've got great challenges in the areas of health and education. And I've seen technologies over the last few days. I was in China just last week. Over the last few days, where we can actually have communication, where we have a scarcity of teachers. You can have a teacher in one place in an urban area, and you can basically use technology to allow him or her to teach children in rural areas. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. Same thing with health. financial inclusion is absolutely important. In a country like Nigeria, where we've got only, I think only 20 million out of 150 million have bank accounts and are excluded from the financial system. With a simple mobile phone, you can actually begin to include these people into the system and allow them to benefit from services that government can offer over the telephone. And then just enabling governments to engage with citizens. When you've got a country as big as Nigeria or as big as some of these other developing countries, that level of engagement is only made possible by technology. So I think that's very key. So for developing countries, extremely important that we begin to see ICT as a means for not only economic development and growth, but also social development and social inclusion as well. For the world as a whole, I think that, you know, the power of technology is really just amazing. And it just brings communities, countries together in a way that we haven't seen before. And, you know, just going back to the same thing, broadband, that's really what's enabling that. It's fast internet that allows us to engage, you know, without actually being physically close to each other. It's applications that allows you to do things with each other without being physically close. And I think that's a major opportunity for us.
Another question, what steps do you think governments can take to enable remote populations and groups that are currently marginalised because they're disenfranchised digitally?
I think the first step is to get connectivity to these rural areas. And once we get that connectivity, you know, what you can do is almost endless. I think there's also it's a myth because you know, people in the rural areas are not comfortable with technology, they won't be able to use it. I think it's a complete myth. We've seen that in Nigeria. You know, once you give somebody a mobile phone, they will use that mobile phone. Even for children, we've actually distributed over 100,000 computers to schools in rural areas, and you see those children literally just jump on those computers. They don't need any instruction. They just get there and they start using that. So I think it's first of all getting connectivity to those rural areas. Secondly, it's what they use that connectivity and the devices to do. And that's where it becomes really important, because it's not just about getting fast internet to them, it's actually attracting them to use that internet. And really it's things that benefit them economically and benefit them socially. So for instance, having access to, I keep going back to Nigeria because that's what I know. Let me tell you about a program that's been started up in Nigeria right now. The Nigerian government has a subsidy on fertilizer that goes to rural farmers. Today, that subsidy doesn't really get to the farmer. There are lots of middlemen along the way, and so it doesn't get to the farmers when it should and how it should. A simple telephone, a mobile telephone, and of course some software. What it means is that you can actually get that subsidy to the farmer via his mobile phone, and he goes and picks up his fertilizer just by a mobile money exchange. That's absolutely revolutionary, because the government is now sure that the billions of naira we're spending on the subsidy is actually getting to the people that actually need that subsidy. So, so I think that's one way in which it's the application of what you're actually doing with it. So farmers see a direct benefit of having a mobile phone. Students see a direct benefit of having a computer and fast internet and using that as a means to learn. So that's really how we begin to get the rural community to see the benefits. So it's not just getting that connectivity out there, which is important, but it's the applications that you then put on the technology, and it's what they then use it for.
A final question, Minister. Can you name one thing that you think needs to happen to get us closer to concluding the mission of giving more global citizens more meaningful access to connected technology?
I think it's going to be devices, cheap, affordable devices.
Omobola Johnson, thank you very much.